What does a billion-dollar CEO do when, their brand just becomes a little too pristine, like too safe?
Right, yeah. Usually they hire a crisis manager, put out some polished press releases, maybe do one of those highly controlled daytime TV interviews.
Exactly. But last week, we watched a mogul take literally the exact opposite approach.
Yeah, completely opposite.
He basically hired his absolute worst critics, put them on a live stage in front of the entire world, and paid them to just burn his reputation to the ground.
Which is wild to watch.
It really is. So today we're looking at a massive cultural flashpoint, the live Netflix broadcast of the roast of Kevin Hart, which just happened on May 10th, 2026. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, our mission today is to unpack the rapidly evolving, really high-stakes world of modern comedy. We're looking at the machinery behind the shock economy, the new frontiers of live streaming, and honestly, the very complicated business of free speech.
It really is a fascinating case study because we are moving way beyond, the traditional idea of comedians in tuxedos casually trading insults at a podium.
Oh, for sure.
This specific event, it operates as a stress test for live streaming tech, a masterclass in aggressive brand management. And ultimately, it exposes this massive ethical paradox surrounding comedians who claim to be free speech absolutists, right up until there's life-changing money on the table.
Right. Now, before we really get into the weeds here, I do need to give you listening a quick but very important heads up.
Yeah, this is crucial.
This roast was specifically built to cross lines, which means the comedians dragged a lot of real-world, highly sensitive baggage right onto the stage. The sources we're analyzing today, they document jokes and discussions surrounding Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, abortion access, the Israel-Iran conflict, Zionism, and even severe criminal allegations involving Jeffrey Epstein and Sean Diddy Combs.
It's heavy stuff.
Extremely. So, to be perfectly clear to you listening, we are not taking sides on any of these issues. We're not endorsing any political viewpoints, whether that's left-wing or right-wing.
Yeah.
And we certainly aren't validating any of these criminal allegations. We're here strictly and neutrally to report on the cultural events and the jokes exactly as they're documented in the source material.
Yeah, that framing is so important for what we're about to do, because to really understand the anatomy of this broadcast, we have to look past the punchlines themselves, right?
Yeah.
We need to examine the cold, hard business strategy that's driving the entire spectacle.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we even touch the scandalous moments that, completely hijack social media, we really need to understand the architecture of the event. Like, why did this happen on this specific scale, and what were Netflix and Kevin Hart actually risking?
Well, the scale is, it's the perfect starting point. Netflix didn't just throw up a random Friday night comedy special.
Right.
This roast was the grand finale of the Netflix is a Joke Fest 2026. They essentially engineered a localized comedy boom.
Yeah, like taking over the city.
Exactly. Over 350 individual events across Los Angeles over several days. And all of that momentum culminated at the Kia Forum, streaming live globally in 4K.
Which is just a massive infrastructural flex for them. But it also, it represents a total philosophical pivot. Because for the last decade, Netflix has basically trained us to embrace asynchronous viewing.
Right, the binge model.
Yeah. The whole model was built on watch what you want whenever you want. But suddenly, they're aggressively pushing us back toward the old-school model of appointment television.
Yeah.
Why the sudden U-turn?
It really comes down to combating what analysts call asynchronous streaming fatigue.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, when you can watch a show at any time, there's zero urgency, right? The cultural water cooler moments disappear because, I'm on episode 2, you're on episode 6.
But you can't even talk about it without spoiling it.
Exactly. Netflix realized they were losing their grip on the daily cultural conversation, so they tested the waters of live, unedited broadcasting in 2024 with the live roast of Tom Brady. And the metrics were just staggering.
Wait, how big was it?
That single event hit 1.67 billion viewing minutes in its first week alone.
A billion. Wow.
Billion with a B.
Because, the algorithm practically forces you to watch it live.
Yeah.
If you decide to wait until, say, Sunday morning to watch the roast, the moment you open your phone, your feed is already flooded with clips and reactions and think pieces.
Exactly.
So you either watch it at 8:00 p.m. on Saturday, or you spend the next 48 hours dodging spoilers.
Precisely. They have weaponized the fear of missing out. It transforms a standard comedy show into this obligatory cultural event.
Which brings us to Kevin Hart himself, and I think to understand his motive, you have to look at where he is in his career right now. He isn't just a comedian anymore, right? He's a multinational corporation.
Oh, absolutely.
He has the tequila brands, the film production companies, venture capital, but the natural byproduct of becoming a clean, safe corporate entity is that you kind of lose the edge that made you famous in the first place.
You become sanitized.
Yeah. And he's been facing a lot of mounting criticism that he sold out. So sitting through 3 hours of TVMA, completely uncensored humiliation, honestly, it's like the untouchable CEO of a Fortune 500 company willingly sitting in a dunk tank at the company picnic just to prove to the frontline workers that he can still take a joke.
That dunk tank analogy is perfect. That's the core mechanism of his PR strategy here. And, it's a stark contrast to their previous attempt with Tom Brady.
Right, because Brady isn't a comic.
Exactly. Brady was a non-comedian. He was a retired quarterback, completely out of his element, essentially just sitting there absorbing damage. But when you put a professional arena touring comic in that seat, the whole psychological dynamic shifts.
Because the audience knows he can fight back.
Yes. The audience inherently knows the subject has the capability to punch back.
And he absolutely did. I mean, at the very end of the night, Hart took the mic and delivered this profanity-laced closing set where he basically channeled the raw energy of the late Bernie Mac.
It was intense.
Yeah. He wasn't defending his businesses or his investments. He was reminding the room that he survived the brutal stand-up club circuits of the late 90s. He was basically telling his detractors, I am not scared of you.
It's brand management through trial by fire. He monetized his own public flogging to scrub that corporate label off his image.
But wait, I have a pushback question here. Are these performers actually trying to craft clever comedy? Or are they just using the stage for shadow litigation? Like, are they weaponizing real-world trauma and political polarization just to guarantee they trend on social media tomorrow? Because if Hart's ultimate goal is to protect his billion-dollar brand, why on earth would he let the roasters cross into such wildly radioactive territory?
That is the big question.
Right. I mean, Katt Williams took the stage and brought up rumors about Hart attending Diddy parties, directly tying him to the real-world news of Sean Combs' recent 50-month prison sentence. Doesn't that risk permanent brand damage just for a temporary ratings bump?
Well, that is the defining risk of what we call the shock economy. In a media landscape where consumers are just bombarded with endless content every second, traditional jokes simply do not cut through the noise anymore.
It just gets scrolled past.
Exactly. The most reliable currency for engagement right now is transgression. And because this is a live, unedited stream with no network censors in the booth, the comedians recognize they have this brief window to bypass traditional talk show safety nets.
So it's less about the craft of joke writing and more about, like, hijacking the algorithm.
Right. And you mentioned shadow litigation. It's a brilliant, if, ethically murky tactic. The performer takes a half-whispered industry rumor or a highly polarized political debate, things that network lawyers would never allow on a standard late-night show, and they disguise it as a joke on a live stage. Suddenly, they turn a comedy show into a courtroom of public opinion. It makes the broadcast feel incredibly dangerous and urgent, and it rewards the audience with a sense of insider knowledge.
That makes perfect sense of the absolute chaotic escalation we saw on that stage.
Yeah.
I mean, the host of the night, Shane Gillis, who, by the way, is currently selling out NFL stadiums, he set the tone immediately.
He really did.
He targeted Chelsea Handler, labeling her a Zionist and bringing up her past attendance at a dinner party at Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion.
Right, a dinner she has previously addressed. She described it as awkward and weird while denying any further association. But by dropping that name in front of a global live audience, Gillis basically forces her into the court of public opinion in real time.
And Handler didn't just sit there and take it. She grabbed the mic and pushed back, actively distinguishing between Judaism and Zionism and calling out Gillis's reliance on controversial tropes.
The tension was palpable.
Yeah, and then she pivoted and aimed right at roaster Tony Hinchcliffe. She mocked his vocal support for Donald Trump and delivered this incredibly biting insult, joking that Hinchcliffe is what happens when women don't have safe access to abortion care.
Which perfectly illustrates the rise of the partisan roast. The comedians are stripping away the traditional cartoonish insults, about someone being ugly or short, and they're replacing them with deeply sensitive socio-political friction points.
Yeah.
They are literally weaponizing reproductive rights and geopolitical conflicts to generate tension.
And the absolute peak of that tension had to be Pete Davidson's set. He delivered a joke regarding the reported death or assassination of right-wing commentator Charlie Kirk.
That was a huge moment.
The reaction in the room wasn't just laughter. Our sources noted audible gasps from the crowd, and it immediately sparked a massive social media backlash, with viewers calling the broadcast disgusting.
Which, ironically, plays right into the hands of the shock economy. The outrage itself becomes the marketing engine for the broadcast. People hate watching it.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because while the shadow litigation and the shock value generated all the headlines you read the next day, if you actually sat on your couch and watched the 3-hour live stream, the artistic execution was kind of a mess.
That really was. And this exposes the immense vulnerability of live, unscripted television. From an engineering standpoint, yes, Netflix triumphed. Pushing a global 4K live stream without the servers crashing is a monumental technical feat.
Well, for sure.
But creatively, the lack of an editorial safety net exposed the fundamental unpredictability of human performance.
Because there was zero pacing. Like in a pre-recorded special, if a 5-minute bit fails, the editor simply cuts it out. Nobody ever sees it.
Exactly.
But here, if a joke bombed, the silence just hung in the air of this massive arena. It created a bloated, deeply uncomfortable runtime. I mean, it got so bad that Shane Gillis, the guy hired to captain the ship, literally leaned into the microphone mid-show and admitted, oh, this is going to be terrible.
Yeah, when the host acknowledges the momentum is dead, you have a structural crisis. Doing 3 hours of stand-up comedy in a massive arena creates this rhythmic monotony. The brain anticipates the pattern setup, punchline, mild applause.
Over and over.
Right. And when that loops endlessly without the tightness of an edit room, the audience mentally checks out.
Which completely explains why the people who actually saved the broadcast from totally flatlining weren't the standard insult comics. Regina Hall, the actress who starred alongside Hart in the Scary Movie franchise, she stepped up and completely broke that metronome. The sources described her set as metaphysical genius.
It was a brilliant pivot. Instead of standing behind the podium delivering aggressive one-liners, she opted for theatricality.
Yeah, it was so different.
She performed this incredibly sweet, soft-spoken bit where she pretended to communicate directly with Hart's deceased mother in heaven, and she used this warm demeanor to ruthlessly eviscerate the quality of Hart's films, claiming they only play in hell.
It worked because it shattered the rhythm. It wasn't just another guy in a suit shouting an insult, and then, you had this surprise guest. Tom Brady showed up, ostensibly to pass the torch of humiliation from his 2024 roast. Musician Lizzo came out and brought this buoyant, lighthearted energy.
She had that great joke.
Yeah, dropping a great line about NBA player Draymond Green looking like 6 Kevin Harts in a trench coat.
They provided vital atmospheric shifts. But, the most effective shift came from outside the comedy world entirely.
Oh, absolutely. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yes.
The man whose entire brand equity is tied up in being the most universally beloved, family-friendly, sanitized action star on the planet. He walks out and executes a flawless WWE-style heel turn. He completely drops the nice guy persona and delivers genuinely mean-spirited, aggressive comedy. It was the shock of the night.
And that psychological shock is exactly why audiences endure the 3-hour bloat. You sit through the uncomfortable silences and the failed jokes specifically to chase the high of an unscripted, completely unpredictable moment of character breakage.
Because it feels real.
Exactly. You cannot manufacture that energy in a polished, pre-recorded special.
It's all about the illusion of authenticity. This entire Netflix broadcast was billed as the ultimate triumph of free speech. It was marketed as this dangerous space where nothing is off limits, where comedians boldly say the things polite society is too scared to say. But it's fascinating that unfiltered, unpredictable authenticity is what saved the Netflix broadcast. Because if you zoom out to the broader industry right now, you realize that this authenticity actually has a very strict price tag.
This is perhaps the most glaring paradox in modern entertainment right now. Concurrently with the Netflix roast, the industry is grappling with the fallout of several prominent American comedians signing on to perform at the inaugural Riyadh Comedy Festival in Saudi Arabia.
Right. A festival funded by a government with heavily documented human rights abuses and severe systemic crackdowns on free expression. And to be clear, we are not talking about struggling open mic comics trying to pay rent here. We're talking about the absolute titans of the industry. Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Pete Davidson.
Even Shane Gillis.
Wow, really?
Yeah, he initially turned down the offer, but later openly admitted on a podcast that the organizers came back and doubled the bag, which changed his mind.
That's wild. Comedian Tim Dillon, who was actually fired from the festival lineup, gave a brutally honest assessment of the underlying psychology here. He said, and I quote, "So what? They have slaves. They're paying me enough money to look the other way.
It's just jarring to hear it stated so plainly.
Pete Davidson essentially echoed the exact same sentiment, stating he simply looks at the routing sheet, sees the financial number, and gets on the plane. Nimesh Patel, a comic who actively dropped out, confirmed that performers are being offered life-changing money.
And the criticism coming from within their own ranks, from comedians like David Cross and Mark Maron, points out a staggering hypocrisy here.
Yeah, how do they justify it?
Well, if you look at the domestic rhetoric of these performers, many of them have built incredibly lucrative brands in the U.S. by positioning themselves as free speech martyrs fighting against cancel culture.
Bro, totally.
Dave Chappelle has famously defended his most controversial material by arguing that the more people tell him he cannot say something, the more urgent it becomes for him to say it. Bill Burr has previously gone on the record stating he would never go perform in the Middle East and risk getting kidnapped.
Yet, when presented with Saudi funding, that rebellious urgency completely vanishes. According to a proposed contract leaked by comedian Atsuka Okatsuka, performers at this festival are subjected to explicit content restrictions. They are legally forbidden from denigrating the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, its leadership, its public figures, its culture, or its legal system.
It's a complete 180.
Honestly, it's like watching a rebellious punk rock band smash their guitars on stage in Los Angeles in protest against the man.
Right.
But then the very next day, they fly overseas to play a sanitized acoustic set at a corporate banking retreat simply because the check had enough zeros.
That analogy captures the exact dissonance we are seeing. In the United States, freedom of speech is frequently invoked by these comics not as a philosophical ideal, but as a license to operate free of ethical friction. They use it to defend making jokes about marginalized communities, political violence, or real-world trauma, claiming it's the duty of the artist to be edgy. But when they are confronted with actual state-sponsored censorship and authoritarian guidelines, they fold immediately. They eagerly self-censor.
Yeah, the profound defense of free speech just evaporates the moment the patron paying the invoice demands silence.
Exactly.
As one critic in our sources brilliantly summarized it, they are happy to treat free speech not as a vital weapon to speak truth to power, but simply as a convenient loophole to avoid accountability back home.
It perfectly encapsulates the reality of the modern comedic landscape. Whether we are analyzing Kevin Hart monetizing his own public humiliation as a strategic PR maneuver to prove he hasn't lost his edge, or we are watching self-proclaimed free speech absolutists eagerly sign restrictive non-disparagement clauses in Riyadh, the conclusion is the same.
Which is what?
Modern comedy is a massive, highly calculated global enterprise. In this ecosystem, concepts like authenticity, rebellion, and outrage are no longer organic artistic expressions. They are meticulously managed line items on a corporate balance sheet.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Next time you fire up a streaming service and watch a stand-up special that feels incredibly raw and unfiltered, it really requires a critical eye. It means understanding that the shock economy demands that boundaries be pushed, but, only in the specific directions that maximize profit, algorithmic engagement, and brand security.
Right. It asks the audience to recognize the immense corporate machinery operating just inches outside the frame of the camera, actively orchestrating the chaos you're consuming.
Yeah. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, especially as we watch technology rapidly alter how entertainment is made. We know that AI is becoming incredibly adept at analyzing data to generate perfectly tailored, boundary-pushing jokes that hit the exact right algorithmic notes to trigger viral outrage.
Oh, it's already happening.
Right. So if we are approaching a future where perfectly crafted, calculated shock can be generated instantly by a machine, we'll live messy, unpredictable human vulnerability like a comedian actively bombing and sweating under the lights on live TV for 3 agonizing hours. Will that become the absolute last form of premium entertainment that we can actually trust is real?
That's a huge question.
Because when that billionaire CEO finally climbs into the dunk tank, no matter how much PR strategy, shadow litigation, and brand management went into organizing the picnic, well, the water is still freezing cold. And the genuine shock on their face when they hit the bottom, that is entirely undeniably human. Thanks for diving deep with us today.